This past Wednesday, many of us gathered to begin the holy season of Lent with the signing of ashes. And so we began, many of us, to think about, what will I do for Lent? So I decided this Lent I'm going to give up bargaining. Now, what I mean by that is not what you might first think. Now, I don't want to quickly judge other men, but I'll speak for myself. I'm not someone who really likes to shop very much. I may confess to enjoy a little time going through the aisles of Home Depot or Lowe's or any hardware store for a while. But shopping at Macy's or Dillard's is not in my vocabulary or in my interest. Think about it for a moment. When you go to a mall and you find a department store, often the men's store, the section within that department store, is always located right off the parking lot. It's there for a reason. We don't get very far into the store, and they want to catch us while we're there. So I'm not talking about that kind of bargaining, finding the best deal, the best sale. Not at all. I'm talking about, the bargaining that happens between you and me and our God, between creature and creator. Now that happens for most of us, almost all of us. We bargain with God. If I were to ask some of our confirmation boys and girls, men and women, young guys, that I would say they do the same thing. It goes like this bargaining you and I have with God. Maybe for you, as students, it starts like this. Lord, I didn't have time to study over the weekend. It was such a busy weekend, Lord. If you just get me through the test Monday, I promise you, I'll be faithful, I'll be loving, I'll be good. Or maybe you reverse it. Lord, I've been faithful, loving, and good. You got to get me through this test. Or maybe it is another way. We turn it to other thoughts. We say, Lord, if you just give me a sign. That's all I'm looking for, Lord. I'm not sure what to do. All I need is a sign from you. Or the other way around. I say, Lord, if that's your idea of a sign, it isn't what I was asking for. How about another one, Lord? I bargain. I'm always asking the Lord, if you do, I will. If you promise, I'll fulfill. But today's gospel in the desert changes that whole dynamic. It says you don't have to bargain with God. You see, we have God here in the desert, and confronted with the devil and surrounded by temptation, he teaches us a lesson. He's telling us that no matter how difficult the situation we face, no matter what challenge we confront, God's power is enough. God's love is sufficient. God's mercy will see us through. Now that's an important lesson to remember. God's strength and mercy and love is all I need. I have forgotten that many times. And it doesn't matter whether I am sinful or holy. It's still true. God's strength is enough. So it tells me that even when I feel overwhelmed by the temptation, God's power is enough. If I myself do not feel that there is goodness enough within me, my own self-hatred overpowers me, God's strength will get me through it. And even when I feel that there is something within me that is broken, God would say to me, my mercy will heal it. So I don't have to bargain with God. I don't have to make any deals with God. He's already promised me that my love is sufficient, my strength is enough. So how does that really play out? Let me give you some examples, because I think all of us have walked through different wildernesses, different deserts, just like Christ. They're different in terms of how they look. Maybe your desert looked like a hospital emergency waiting room. It was sudden, unexpected, but you're there. And suddenly you find yourself, caught off guard. Everything that was so certain seems to be thrown up in the air. And the one you love is not quite where you need them to be. In fact, you're not sure if they're going to get through what they're having to endure. Maybe your desert was that place, that medical center where you go for the chemotherapy and you watch that drip every Wednesday and you just hope you get through this nightmare. Maybe your desert, your wilderness, was that parking lot where you couldn't find your car because you were disorientated after finding out you were being downsized, or that your job was now being eliminated and you don't know which way to turn. Suddenly, I can't find my way as clearly as I did. Maybe your desert was that time when you had to confront a life-altering decision for which you felt unprepared, unready, and so you were frozen. You didn't know what to say. You didn't know how to act, which way to go. Or maybe it was your desert that evening when you waited up for your son or your daughter, the one that always makes the wrong and bad decisions. And they always seem to push the limits, and you waited up all night for them to come home. In every one of these and so many others we could name, those deserts, those wildernesses are wherever you feel helpless, wherever you feel you can't quite solve the situation, or you're not sure you're going to survive it. Those are the wildernesses. And that's why this gospel is so essential. It tells us when you're in those settings, remember the truth. God's power is enough. God's strength will get you through. God's love is there for you. You see, the truth of Lent really is helping you and me discover that God really wants me to be happy, really wants me to experience love and goodness in my life. Now, there's a new thing for Lent for many of us. Discovering the God who wants me to be happy. Discovering the God that wants me to succeed. Uncovering the God that wants me to know love. That's a different message than many of us believe Lent has to offer. And so you and I have to look again at how we're looking at Lent. I need to stop bargaining. And instead of bargaining, just accept the truth. God is there for me. God wants me to survive. God's strength is offered to me. That's a good lesson for me. And maybe more importantly, I need to remember the truth of the gospel when Christ is there. Christ is there in the desert to say, Jesus has come, not to change the mind of God about us, but Jesus has come to change our mind about God. Think about that. Say it again. Jesus has not come to change the mind of God about us, but Jesus has come to change our mind about God. That God is strong enough. God is powerful enough. God's love is what should endure in Lent. So maybe I'd like you to join me. No more bargains, not this Lent. No more trying to do deals with God. I don't have to. What I have to recognize, get into my head and my heart, that God already has given me strength. God wants me to know happiness. God desires that I know love. So I'll turn away maybe along with you and start considering less bargaining and more accepting, trusting that God will do what God has promised. I don't have to bargain. The deal's already been made. And quite frankly, it's a pretty good deal. God has given me enough strength and promised me I can find love and happiness.